Hello everybody, here we are today talking about the Nashville Predators and how in the world they are this bad. But before we get started with that, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So this one is going to be one that kind of goes off the rails a little bit, where I'm probably ranting. At other points it probably will seem a little bit more scripted. And originally I wasn't going to talk about Nashville for probably a little while. I literally had just done a video talking about, five head coaches that were on the hot seat, and Andrew Burnett was one of those. So I was like, you know what, that's kind of Nashville related, so we'll leave it be. And then they go out there and they lose 5-0 to the New Jersey Devils last night. I'm like, you know what, we got to talk about it. We have to talk about Nashville, because what in the world was that? So anyway, let's just go out there and talk about the Preds. So Nashville is undoubtedly going to have a worse year this year compared to last year. They had 99 points last season. They're on pace to drop by about 30. So they would have their first season where they don't crack 70 points in a full 82-game season since the 2001-2 campaign. Obviously, it's been over 20 years, so again, that is not normal for Nashville. And this is also a year where it's been very frustrating. They have had, I think, 8 occasions where they've been shut out on the course of the year, and 16 times when they've allowed 5 goals or more. Now, I know, again, everybody that is a fan of a certain team will be like, well, how many of those were empty net goals? I don't know why that's super defendable in this case a lot of times, because when you put yourself in the situation where you've already allowed 4, the 5th is almost inevitable if you're trying to go out there and play catch-up. So we won't argue that. But I think it's just kind of odd, considering this is a team that has multiple 40-goal scorers from literally last year, and then also had a team that was 13th in goals allowed per game. Typically I do goals against per 60, but natural stat trick, I don't know if their website's kind of not working right now or if my signal's really bad. Either way, again, the point gets across, all guys that can score, and then a team that was above average in not allowing goals last season. But of course, here we are now where their offense is just abysmal, 30th in the league in goals for per game. And then defensively, they're actually surprisingly better than I thought, 26th in goals allowed per game. So that's good. But I think ultimately there are a lot of things that are kind of sticking out for this Nashville team right now. And one of those is those veteran guys that probably are set to have kind of down years in a lot of ways. They may not have numbers that look as bad by the end of the year. I think some of them are probably going to get a little bit closer to the numbers you would expect. But at the end of the day, I think that you expected more from these big-name guys, and it's just unfortunate. But I think also, too, you do have to understand Nashville has got a lot of younger players. I think as recently as last year, before they added a lot of these veteran guys, or 2 years ago, they were one of the younger sides in the NHL. I could be mistaken there. But they have a lot of first-round picks or former first-round picks that are, sinking their teeth in the league this year. Zach LaRue, Fedor Svechkov, I believe, is also another example of that. So it's just kind of unfortunate, because while these guys are trying to get a grip and learn what it's like to play at the NHL level, the top guys maybe aren't performing as much as they should be or you're hoping for, and they need more depth help. But I'm not necessarily sure that's going to be coming, especially from the young guys, as they are, again, in their first 20 to 50 games in the NHL. It's very hard all around right now. But goodness gracious, we can make excuses all we want, but there are just a lot of numbers that are not looking good in all of this. And I think that it's not necessarily, oh, this player had a down year, or this player will have a year that's a major regression or whatever, or this young guy didn't come in and produce as much as they're hoping for. It's more of where they're finishing in the standings. I didn't think that it was going to be necessarily with them winning the division this year. I thought it was going to be hard to be in the Central Division. A couple of years ago, we joked about how easy the Central was, and then it looks like a pretty deep division right now. Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, teams are going to be hard to get past. Minnesota, we thought, maybe they could put up more of a fight than they did last year. And they did. They actually got off to a fantastic start. And so you knew Nashville's path to the playoffs very well could have been as a wild card team. But the thing is, they're not even there. They are 7th in their division, just ahead of a team of like the Chicago Blackhawks, which is, again, the only team that I guess is below them in the division right now. It's been firmly in a rebuild for a while, and it's not so much, oh, they're 7th in the division, although that is bad. I think it's more of, they're 14th in the Western Conference. They are, 30th in the league overall. This is just almost unbelievable. And I think part of the problem is they are below teams like the Anaheim Ducks and the Seattle Kraken. No disrespect to those teams, but going into the season, there is no reason at all that this Nashville team should have been below teams like Seattle and Anaheim. Especially, I think that while Anaheim is one of those sides that you're hoping can kind of turn things around, this actually looks like it'll be their best year since the 2017-18 campaign. Seattle's been a side that I've never really been in love with how the roster is looking over the past couple of years, especially. They had kind of that breakout season, but things have really regressed in recent years. But that's just, there's other teams in the conference too that we could kind of point out to, and out east, I think, as well too. But primarily, again, I think it is the Western Conference and realizing that this is a bottom 3 team in the league right now. And you just should not be a bottom 3 team with this roster. I don't even know. I feel like we're keep harping on it. I'm getting stumbled here because it just is wild. This Nashville team has just been really, really disappointing. And it's been probably, again, one of the most disappointing teams in terms of performance and expectations since I've started the channel. And now you have the question of, well, what exactly is Nashville as a team? Because I think one way that I'm kind of seeing it is older guys that are certainly past their prime paired with younger guys that just aren't ready to take over just yet. And that is a huge problem, especially because Nashville has, I think, at least 6 players that they've committed substantial amounts of money to and a length of contract for at least 3 years. So 3 years out, they've got a lot of these guys that are more other key players in this locker room that are going to have to either step up or the younger guys are going to have to step up. And I think that's kind of a huge concern. And I think ultimately Nashville has got a lot of avenues they can go down. Not all necessarily bad. They've got 3 first-round picks in this draft, I do believe. And they could, again, kind of have the best-case scenario where some of these older players end up stepping up and they rebound a little bit and they're able to automatically rise in the standings, as well as helping out some of those young guys develop a little bit faster. Now, I've never really been a big fan of the argument of, oh, well, we've got a ton of these star players that are getting paid a lot of money. They'll be able to help teach the young guys. Because, again, sometimes talent doesn't match up to what you can be taught. Again, there's only so many Sidney Crosbys out there. There's only so many, Steven Stamkoses for this example and whatnot. So you can only teach so much, I do believe. But I think at the same time, too, there is a benefit to having a lot of good older players on your team to show the players that are younger that maybe not developing at a superstar level about how the game is played the right way in the NHL. So I think there is the opportunity, again, to kind of get back on the rebound. But at the same time, too, I really do worry about this team in the coming years as they are getting kind of a earlier than expected drop off in the standings. So what do? Do they just try to roll the dice again? I think that is a very real possibility. Probably, again, not with Andrew Burnett as head coach, considering how embarrassing this year has been. But they could say, we've already got a lot of this money invested. We've already got a lot of these older guys that kind of feel like this could be the final days of their career. They want to play here and still feel like they can make an impact. And we truly feel like we could be better. Or they could go a different route and say, well, we've already got a decent amount of these young players that could be making their debuts. We've already got a decent amount of first-round picks, especially in this year's draft. We could trade a lot of these guys away, maybe get assets for the future, and enter kind of a hard rebuild. And I don't really think that that's the end-all, be-all in this case because, again, teams like Dallas, teams, of course, like Winnipeg, teams like Minnesota, they could be there in the coming years to be a threat again. It's very hard because I think a lot of times you think of it as, oh, well, we're within so many points of this team, where it's more of age and playing a factor, and will we still be relevant by that time? And even if we're relevant, is it in terms of just making the playoffs or is it winning a championship? Because there's a total difference of being an old team making the playoffs and then in 3 years saying, let's try to keep it together and keep trying to make it into the playoffs and roll the dice there, versus a team saying, well, we are right there to winning a Stanley Cup and in 3 years we feel like we're going to be in a good spot. Again, I think Dallas is a good example of this. They are a team that isn't necessarily perfect, but they look good now, and they'll probably look good in 3 years. So for Nashville, it's okay, I think, to enter a rebuild, but I don't know if Barry Trotz will want to do that. And at the end of the day, I just think for Nashville fans, it's not been a norm to see this team be really bad. And this year, it's just probably been one of those years where, like, man, I do not want to watch this team play, and that's okay. But again, as fans, we got to bear through the bad days and hope for the better ones. But I just wanted to talk about Nashville because I said it very, very early in the season that their season was over. I think a lot of people thought, well, eventually they'll turn it around. But when I realized that they'd have to play like 115, 120 point pace to even probably be a playoff team, that's when you knew that their season was done. But again, shift the focus to the draft, which could be very important. Shift the focus maybe even to the deadline, because it could be important as well as kind of resetting the team for the start of next year. I hate to say that a season is lost, but it's been lost for a while now for the Preds, and they're going to have to figure out exactly what to do for the upcoming years. But anyway, what are your thoughts on the Nashville Predators? Again, this kind of seemed crazy and I was rambling, but that was kind of the point of today's video, was to just go on a rant about how crazy of a year it's been for them. A lot more downs than ups than I expected. But anyway, again, leave your thoughts down below. Also, please make sure to like this video, and everybody, please stay safe. Have a great night, and you go with Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.